Something that I like to think about is what would I tell the entire world if I had the forum to do so? If the things I were to speak out into what would otherwise be a void would be received by an imperceptible mass of people, that perhaps it could affect some change, some good. Hey, buddy. If I had this forum, if I had this means of being able to communicate in a moment to the entire world, surely there's an endless amount of things I could advocate for. Things that are in an essence of good, things that bring awareness, things that teach. We all have a unique contribution to make to the whole, a contribution that only we can make. Nobody can replicate what we can deliver, right? There is a unique capacity that we can share. If I had the opportunity to speak to the entire world, what I would say is that goodness exists and goodness is worth choosing, and that it is necessary for us to choose it. Socrates, in his life, discovered the greatest wisdom of all to know his limits as to what he could actually know, which is that morality, goodness, exists, but only insofar as it could be perceived by a mortal person, right? He is submitting himself to this external divine entity, this evident truth that he, as a human being, is incapable of fully grasping. He is submitting himself. He is being humble in this regard. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. He just admits that it would be hubris to pretend that he could define it. He alone, out of all people that have ever been and will ever be. That's foolish. So he doesn't delude himself in this regard. And so goodness remains. Goodness is observable. You can imagine yourself in a cave, blind. You're plodding around in the dark. And as you do so, your hands come upon this object. And open your eyes and try to see it as you may, it's pitch black. You can't see a thing. But if you feel it, if you explore it, if you use your senses to traverse it, what you will discover about this objective morality, this evident truth, is virtues. Though you'll never in your time be able to definitively define it, you'll be able to pick out its components. Okay, this here is honesty. This here is love. This here is patience. This here is courage. This here is temperance. You'll be able to hold these things in your hand and definitively know them as components of a higher evident truth. Now, as I said, this is here. Regardless whatsoever, if someone comes to know it, it's there. Gravity was always there, regardless of whether or not we had the notion to be able to conceive of such and understand it in such a way. If we have an instinct to rightness, to wrongness, isn't there almost an inherent tether to what Socrates would call this objective moral truth? Isn't there something there? Isn't there something in us that pulls us in this direction? I mean, just look inside of yourself. In what ways are you lying to yourself every single day, betraying yourself, failing to follow through with the things that you believe in? In how many different ways are we failing in this regard? In how many different ways are we constantly betraying ourselves? Is the voice inside of our heads completely contradicting what we'd like to do on a good day? It's happening all the time. And even if you have a win streak without any failure, at a moment, the animal within you can usurp you, and your streak's broken just like that. So this dynamic, this innate sensitivity, this innate awareness, a proclivity, that alone is not enough, right? You cannot merely assume then that rightness and wrongness just falls into the hands of the perceiver. No, it doesn't. As a person, definitive right and wrong will always have some manner of ambiguity. But that doesn't mean that in the post game, in the audit, it's not going to be revealed what components were good and what components weren't. Like, we don't have the luxury to know that. Ambiguity is not a reason not to try. We try. We try to go towards that objective goal, knowing that we may succeed, we may fail, and we're not going to know that in our time, and it doesn't matter in our time. What matters is we believed and we tried. Right? Now, one of these virtues that we're finding in this cave that we're plodding around in blind is piety. This is the one Socrates died for. He said piety is not doing what's pleasing to the gods, and impiety is not doing what's displeasing to the gods. It's more than that. It's being deeply grounded in what's called a just relationship. You must have justice. You must have rightness, goodness, correctness as it pertains to divinity. And as much as Socrates literally believed that God or the gods was responsible for life, was responsible for affecting the world that we inhabited, his knowledge didn't forestall and limit itself with this sort of contrived confusion, this imperceptible whole. It didn't stop there. He believed, as with objective morality, he was glancing the components of something beyond himself that he would never be able to fully behold, but that he knew was there. He believed that when he died, he would be judged by the guardian spirit on the moral fiber of his conduct in life. So the justness, the rightness, the correctness as it pertains to God or the gods, that is piety. That is one of the virtues. I would argue that is the chief virtue among all the others. Okay? So we've now established that among all other things that we may try to incorporate in our lives, take it from my life. I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in gods. I didn't have faith really of any kind. Because when I first came to read the Stoics, when I first came to read the ancients, and then the Christian theologians, in each case, in each subset, God, the gods, these are just products of their time. This is just how, in their ignorance, they coped with the limits of what they did and did not know. Right? Zeus and, the gods that represent these specific little facets of life. These are just confusions. These are just confounded things in order to perceive a larger whole. And then as we got a little bit smarter, we kind of focused on one God, right? We had Christianity, right? Islam, Judaism, perhaps. And these theologies to us in the present also seem just as stupid, right? The common person who lives their life without faith, which is most of us, as far as I'm aware, in my small circle of the world, we also view that monotheistic approach as just, again, another product of its time. And I did this quite often. I mean, I did sort of understand, but I didn't fully understand. Oh, God is dead. Nietzsche made a discovery. Humans have actually surpassed the necessitation of God in order to perceive and function in the world. Right? That we've actually surpassed and evolved past needing God to be able to contemplate these things. But the exchange that we had is that faith disappeared. There's no more North Star. What is the goal now? What is guiding us through all of this moral ambiguity? What about the ambiguity of ourselves? Am I just supposed to rely on myself to be able to get through that? Nietzsche had to behold the ugly face of faith having lost its course. That faith is now just a mask. He talks about, in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, these afterworlders choosing faith, choosing God and goodness and all this stuff just to save yourself, just to get to the after, just to completely subtract yourself from anything that in your lived life mattering. You just got to get to the other side. I just got to get there. That's ridiculous. That's why he hated it so much. The people that misinterpret, the people that lack the piety of Stoicism, he hates them too. They're nothing more than idle life coaches, just teaching you how to just numb yourself and be complicit and complacent, to detach yourself from the innate will to freedom. Right? God is dead because nowhere could he observe God. Nowhere could he observe belief and the uphold of a virtuous pursuit. And so it falls upon the individual to make it real. And so Nietzsche is coming upon the Superman, right? The divinity of man. Because he's discovering the impetus and the precedent established by your personal belief. Like, whoa, that's powerful stuff right there. That if only you believed in it, you could then overcome man. You could overcome yourself. You don't need to be complacent. You don't need to sate yourself. You don't need to save yourself. You don't need to be so petrified. You don't have to be a part of the manipulated dead. You don't have to be a part of the horde of people that are just sort of lost, the herd. You don't need to be in that. Right? That's why Zarathustra descending the mountain is this tsunami. But it's not a terror. It's not a terrible thing. He's coming down because he wants to deliver everyone from their delusions. He wants to help them. The other hermit, the other ascetic criticizes him. This is foolish. I mean, really? You're really going to go do that? It's pointless. You know it's pointless, right? And he says, you know what? I want to try. I still want to try. So God being dead is this sort of mourning, this grieving. God is dead because I don't see him anywhere. Now that is, it kind of comes with a sort of defeat, a defeatist outlook, both within yourself and with the world around you, which I think we could all relate to that. I think we see a lot of things every day that would really kind of just encourage one to believe that this whole notion of God, an enactor of good, a savior, is just dumb. It's a load of crap. Because if that's a thing, then why is there all this horror? Why is there all this suffering and wrongness? I don't know. I don't think anyone could answer that question, really. But just because there's all this wrongness, that means that we're not going to believe in good? Because the truth is, the whole world is never going to all believe in one faith and one God. It's never going to happen. I mean, even if they did, if they were all dead, what then? Right? If no one is there to be able to believe in it and perceive the goodness, there's no believer. right? The essential component, you, is missing. And it's, it's kind of a paradigm. But God is not actually dead. You don't need faith any less than they did. Not any less than the people 10,000 years ago. Not any less than 5,000, 2,000, 1,000, 200. The evident truth is that everyone needs faith for their entire life, forever. Everyone's going to need it. Even if we're not all going to agree. So the question is, we might not agree on all the nitty-gritty details, but do you believe in goodness? Do you believe goodness is worth choosing? Do you believe that it exists, that we as people, look, we got all these disagreements, all this vehement stuff, but can we just remind ourselves in that moment of our disagreement, in the peak of vitriol, can we remind ourselves, I submit myself. Embrace me, my fellow. I submit myself, as we both submit ourselves. What are we but people living once? Let us remind ourselves that there is a goodness that we should always reach for through ambiguity, even if we can't agree. Let us try. Let us pull on those virtues. Let us lean into that. Let us focus on that. Let us try. In a room of 100 people, if none of them think goodness is worth choosing, and none of them will take it, none of them will cross the line. No one has the courage to do it. Then goodness isn't there. Right? Goodness isn't real because it's not being focused. It exists. It's waiting in the dark corners of ourselves to be chosen. But until it's believed in and chosen, where is it? It's quiet. It's dormant. But if one single person in that room says, you know what? Right here, goodness is here. Now, it might be beyond me. I will not be able to define it. You're going to be able to gotcha me. You're going to be able to rip me to shreds. You're going to be able to disprove as much as you want. That's the truth. I'm flawed. You can poke holes in me all you want. But I believe that it doesn't matter how flawed I am. It doesn't matter my inability to perceive it. It's there. Even if my path to get there isn't going to be perfect, I'm choosing it. And I'm going with it. And I'm believing in it right here, right now. And no one can take that away from me. I will choose good. Boom. Just like that, goodness exists. Goodness is real. Just like that. Because someone believed in it. Right? That's the power of belief. Isn't that surreal? Doesn't that start to build a precedent? 2 battles, right? 57 BC, Legate Galba in the Alps, and 54 BC, Legate Kata near Germany. 57 BC, Galba needs to go secure a fortress to secure a supply line for Gaul. He gets betrayed and surrounded. 54 BC, Kata is wintering because there was a crop failure and all the legions are divided after returning from Britain all over to make sure everything is okay and above bar. They also get betrayed and they get surrounded, right? So we have 2 armies, 2 battles, they're 3 years apart, same kind of situation, right? They're alone and they're surrounded. In both situations, the enemy comes to them and they say, you are surrounded. No one is coming to save you. You are outnumbered. You have no hope of escape. You are beaten. Give up. Now, in the case of Legate Kata near Germany, he believed this was the case. And he wanted to get out. He believed they were beaten. Situation untenable. We need to go. His advisors, his council, did not agree. They argued vehemently. But Kata wanted to get out of there so bad, he was even willing to risk inspiring panic and rout and mutiny in the army to get his way. So ultimately his council capitulated to his determination. So the 54 BC Kata group, they're out of there. They're leaving. 57 BC Galba, no, not the same situation. They get told the same ultimatum. Galba meets with his men. They think the conditions are bad. The sword of defeat is being held to their neck that says, you are beaten. Give up. And they said, no. We have a plan. We believe in the plan. Let's act on it. Now, when Kata leaves his fortress 2 miles down the road, what do you know? Betrayed. Slaughtered to the last man. Some of the other officers and soldiers with him, the whole time, they didn't believe in this. But they couldn't possibly have come up with enough belief in this circumstance to save themselves. They couldn't possibly have done it. Because sometimes belief is not enough in this world. Right? Sometimes it's just not enough. But we're not trying to establish if it's enough or if belief is perfectly moral. This is not a moral world. The invasion of Gaul in this time, this antiquated classical era, this is not a moral time. There's nothing moral about Caesar invading Gaul, and there's nothing moral about the Gauls invading each other and trying to repel the Romans. It's just the way the world worked. So, Kata and his entire legion has just been slaughtered. In contrast, Galba, they've been surrounded 3-1 odds. They say 30,000, it was more likely 15,000 against 5,000 or less. Understrength legion. They consolidated their efforts, they held their position, and they defended. Then they devised a plan to sally out of the gates, nullify the enemy's numerical advantage by surrounding them against the walls they were trying to get into, and they won. They routed the enemy, they eliminated 1/3 of their forces, and they were able to escape. Now, what's the difference here? Belief. One group, from the officer down to the lowest soldier, believed. They believed in the orders they were receiving, and they believed in the cognitive integrity of the people beneath them and above them and beside them to execute, and that mattered. And thirdly, that their role in that mattered as well. In the 636 Battle of Yarmouk, when the Romans are pushed to the precipice of the Rakad and the Yarmouk, they rout, they break. Why? Because belief was gone. Right? No one believed anymore that holding formation, that fighting together, that following orders and all this stuff, nobody believed that mattered anymore. So they panicked. Now, granted, if they believed, would that have changed the outcome? Probably not. But we see this essence, this recurrence of belief and how it affects these kind of situations, right? We're just establishing that belief, while not wholly a moral component, it affects things. It can affect life. It can be profound. If Galba just threw in the towel, just like Kata would do 3 years later, maybe they all would have gotten slaughtered too. But that didn't happen. And that didn't happen because of belief. Okay, now we're really starting to get somewhere. Belief has power. Okay? Belief means something. If you believe and you act in accordance with belief, you can change life. You can affect life. It might have its limits in this world, but it can have an effect. Okay, we're really getting somewhere now. That person, that one person who believed in good, made good real. They pulled it out of the evident ethereal into the world, just like that, because they believed in it. They are now the evidence to the other 99 people that good is real and good is worth choosing. Even if it's not perfectly definable, it's still worth choosing. It still is a proponent of virtues and ideals that demand us to work together to strive for it. It's right there. You're going to be imperfect at it. You're going to mess up. It doesn't mean you don't choose it, though. It doesn't mean it's just this nebulous, it's kind of just whatever. No, it's not just whatever. It matters. Again, when Socrates is going to die, he will be judged by the guardian spirit for the moral fiber and integrity of his actions in life. What did he reap, and so what will he sow? This is 400 years before Christianity. This is 425 years before Christ, something like that. And yet he's kind of right there. Epictetus says, you think you're alone, but you have a piece of God there in you. You're not alone. Your body is nothing but carefully crafted clay. Zeus laughs at you. You think you're alone, but I've taken a part of my body. I've made you in my image. Epictetus, he didn't even really know Christians existed. And yet, his discovery of evident truth is almost parallel, as was Socrates' belief. In fact, the Christians uphold Socrates as a prophet because of this divine whisper within him that compelled him to rightness and wrongness, to evident truth. Epictetus, in his time, he also criticized how you debase yourself when you give in to pride, to ego, to lust, to being unable to resist temptation, or gratifying yourself on your verse and your prose, you being full of yourself. Marcus Aurelius says, I must not become like them. I must not become obsessed with my own image in the mirror. Right? These guys, and Plato as the recorder of Socrates' life, Arian as the recorder of Epictetus' life, right? It immediately starts to branch out. All these people really, truly did believe in this kind of evident truth that they needed to align themselves to. But even if they tried to deceive themselves and to lie to themselves, you're not fooling anyone. You're not fooling anyone. You're gonna be judged when you're done. The audit is gonna happen. So stop pretending that it's not. And don't be this afterworlder who just completely resigns themselves from living in the world. You're only going to live in the world like probably once. And maybe that's not the case. We don't actually know that though. And so the precedent is greatly established that what we do matters. The time that we have is very, 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 very important. It's all we'll ever have. So don't squander it. Don't waste it. Try as hard as you can not to waste it. So, all this belief in good, all this power of belief, all this sort of evident truth, this moral goodness that's beyond our comprehension alone. Okay? What does that mean for me? Why would someone who, much like I did, understands, this kind of stuff, it's just kind of products of its time, the divinity, the God stuff, it's all just kind of whatever, right? Well, I've tried ever since becoming upon the greats and literature in general, what everything I'd learned in life, to discipline myself and to really try to implement it into my life. Because I believed it was all on my shoulders. Right? Every failure is my fault. Every success is mine. Glory be to me. I did it. It's all me. And then when it's not me, oh, it's not me. It's all not me. And I hate myself. It's total collapse, right? I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. The point established by all this belief is that you holding it all on your own shoulders is complete folly. The truth is, you cannot do it alone. And since no one else can ever be inside you, inside your head, inside your soul, you're always going to be alone. You came into the world alone, you will leave the world alone. But there's only one thing that sits beside you inside your mind. That's God. That's evident truth. That's the things that are true even if you don't have the capacity to perceive it. It resides right there next to you. The only condition in which you are not alone is with God. However you choose to see that, right? If you want to go the Stoic route, okay. However you want to do it, evident truth is there. Objective morality is there. Piety is there and you need it. You can't take one part of the cake and I'm not going to have that part. You got to have all of them. Right? Don Quixote. You want to be a knight errant? When he meets the knight of the green top coat, there's no such thing as knights. Right? He doesn't believe in knights. He's like, what are you talking about? Like that's a thing of the past. That's not a thing. There's no knights in the world. Well, Don Quixote, foolish though he may be, yeah. In fact, he actually is a knight. Because he believes. And he defines the knight as this divine righteous believer, that they are a theologian, an artist, a soldier, that they fulfill these different disciplines of life to be able to nurture and protect and teach and hold and defend. That when they go out adventuring in the world to slay giants, they slay pride. Whoa. Not only, owing to this absurdity of, why can't we tap into our imagination and have some fun? Why can't the giants, why can't windmills be giants, right? Yeah, of course. There's absurdity to life. Why can only kids dream and imagine and tap into this fun? But also, it takes belief. It takes being a knight, a thing that doesn't exist anymore in Cervantes' time and in the world of Don Quixote. It takes being a thing that no one is believing is worth doing, is over. That's not a thing. It's a thing if you believe that it is and act in accordance with it, then it's real. So yeah, Don Quixote is a knight. And so too should you be one. Believe and act in accordance with that belief. He says that it must not stray farther than the Christian religion that they profess. Right? Faith is a part of it too. Piety is a part of it too. Evident divine truth is a part of it too. And in the genius of this comedic, back and forth and scrubbery of their conversations, Sancho Panza says, God knows the truth of everything. Evident truth. Like, wow, are we getting somewhere? Do we not see the impetus to believe? Do we not see what is reaped and sown by belief alone? You deserve it. Because what does it mean to believe, right? You, by believing, you believe it's not too late. It's not too late to bear the full face of yourself. Because that's the most heartbreaking thing in the entire world, is that people believe it's too late, that they're not worth saving. Nah, it's too late for me. Go on without me. I can't. I'm not going to make it. Yeah, you are. No one gets left behind. Nobody. It's never too late. It doesn't matter if you're freaking perfect or not freaking perfect. It doesn't matter. You're worth it. It's okay. You're not defined by all the things that have happened to you. You're not defined by everything that you messed up. You're not defined by how you continue to mess up. You're not. I mean, it doesn't matter if you go on messing up your entire life. In the end, when you're judged, you'll find out what the audit is, but it's never too late to choose good, to choose to believe. It's the most terrifying thing in the world. When you really start to bare the abyss of yourself and see just how deep the rabbit hole goes beneath the unconscious, coping and rationalizing and all this stuff. When you kind of detach yourself from this anxious clutch, when you let go and you start to back away from the precipice, you really start to see just how deep this cavern goes. In the sense of, yourself, not the analogy regarding objective morality. And that's paralyzing with fear. That's absolutely terrifying. And a lot of people won't choose it just because of that. Because it's too scary. But being afraid is the necessary condition of bravery, isn't it? Even if you don't feel glorious and brave, when other people see you doing it, they might call it that. But you feel fear. That's where your faith comes in. That's where your belief comes in. That no matter the fear, who you truly are is evident. It is known. The true fiber of your person doesn't exist in a material world. It doesn't exist in how other people perceive you. It's only inside. You'll have to do the hardest battle that there ever could possibly be to choose that. In the war of good against evil, the only battlefield you'll ever know is within you. Those are the limits. Those are the boundaries. Try as you may to go jump into someone else's battle and do all this other stuff. You can't neglect yours. That's the one you're responsible for. And having integrity, means that you put yourself in order first before you went out around doing whatever. That's the post game. The main campaign, main story, level 1 to level 50, that's all internal. That's the only battlefield that you should be concerned with. And until it's done, you got to do your best in every other accord. Try your best. You got to focus here first. That's how you free yourself. That's how you free yourself of the guilt. of the anxiety, of the crushing, suffocating weight of inadequacy, of perfection, of failure, of discipline. Because you're going to fail in everything in your life. You're going to mess everything up. Even if you catch a hot streak, you already know that ain't lasting long, right? It's inevitable. So you instill your belief in the evident truth. You believe that even if you can't define it singularly, it's there. And it's worth choosing. And it's worth working together to uphold it. And it's worth believing in. Because if you believe in it, you're the evidence that it's real. You can inspire the people around you. You can do good things. Just because you believed. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that remarkable? Imagine what within ourselves we could conquer because we first believed. It's limitless. Maybe I'll change my mind on that in the future, but I tried for so long and I tried so hard to do it all alone. I was alone. No one could be in there with me, sharing the weight with me. I poured myself into my friends. I would, confide in them. And they would support me. And they would be there for me. And they would catch me. But the true, as they say in the movie Cloud Atlas, the true, that stuff deep inside you, you probably won't speak it out to anyone. You barely will probably speak it out to yourself. But it's already known. It is already evident. Everything about you is already... The evident truth sees right through you. Right through you. God sees right through you. You see right through yourself. I mean, come on. You're both watching the same movie. Think of yourselves in a theater, and you're both sitting next to each other watching outside of your eyes. No matter what it is you're seeing happen, like, you know what's going on inside. So if you can see through yourself, so can God. So can evident truth. So don't be scared. Or if you are scared, it's okay. It's time to fight. It's all right. Yeah, but I messed up and I did all this stuff and I constantly am messing up and I'm not worth it. And it's too late for me and it's too hard and all this pain and all this stuff that I've experienced. And you're not defined by any of that. You're not. You deserve so much more than that. You are more than all of that. But only if you believe it. Only if you believe it. That's why you need faith in something outside yourself. Because you're broken. You're flawed. You're biased. You're an animal. As long as you crave a burger and a nice glass of water, you can't rely on yourself. In some cases, that's why fasting is such an important component of faith. Because you can resist it for so long and you'll want food so bad, and the second you get your hands on it, you're already full. So what was that feeling anyway? Nothing. That's why you cannot rely on yourself. Individually, anyway. You can't solely rely on yourself. So bear the full face of yourself. As ugly as it is, as much as you don't want to do it, weep and cry. That's part of it. Fall into the arms of evident truth, into God, that though you may not fully understand these feelings in you, you know that they're known. You know that it's known, that it's seen, that you are seen already, that you've been beheld. Because if you can do that, if you can give trust, you're opening yourself up. And if you practice opening yourself up, if you practice this introspect, if you practice this forgiveness with yourself, that like it's not too late for you, you can trust in time that the healing process will begin and it will progress. But that's what you need to do first. If I could tell the whole world something, that's what I would tell them. Because it's never too late. The world needs belief. The world needs knights. The world needs goodness. People with the courage to believe. And the scariest thing to face is yourself. I couldn't possibly want anything more for the people in the world than maybe for them to have that. And that maybe they'd smile a little bit more and not feel so alone. So, believe. Rattle your scabbard, draw your sword, stand as a knight errant against the crushing tide of doubt, fear, sin. Draw your sword and stand the line. You might not be perfect, but the army of good that stands against the army of evil is an army rife with impurity, misdeed, and failure. But what separates them from that grotesque thing opposite them, that army of wickedness, is belief.